So let's dive into a pretty provocative argument today. The idea is that all these big global events we're seeing, they aren't random. According to the source material we're breaking down, they're all part of a deliberate grand strategy. And the goal? To build a new American century on a really simple but powerful principle: peace through strength. So what does that actually mean? Let's get into it. You've heard this story a million times, right? For years, the narrative has been that America is an empire in decline. We've had costly wars, a sputtering economy, and our influence on the world stage just isn't what it used to be. But the analysis we're looking at today, it flips that entire narrative on its head. It argues that what looks like decline is actually the quiet execution of a very calculated plan. Okay, so to get this strategy, you first have to know who it's aimed at. The source we're examining actually coins an acronym for the opposition: CRINK. That's C-R-I-N-K, for China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. The argument here isn't just that these are separate adversaries, but that they've formed a new, coherent Axis power, all united in their opposition to the current world order. All right, so here's the core thesis from our source. The events unfolding across the globe are not just random acts of fate or signs of weakness. No way. Instead, they're presented as calculated moves on a global chessboard, a blueprint designed to ensure American dominance, not through old-school empire, but through a totally new kind of global leadership. The first major pillar of this strategy, according to our source, is all about rewriting the rules in the Middle East. And this means a really fundamental shift in America's role in one of the most complicated regions on the planet. So, the source argues there's been this huge strategic shift. Think about the old model: direct intervention, right? The endless wars of nation building. Well, the new model is completely different. America steps back from the front lines and becomes more of a strategic broker, empowering regional allies to form their own security partnerships. And the Abraham Accords, they're pointed to as the textbook example of this new approach in action. So why broker these deals in the first place? The analysis points to one single clear objective: unite regional powers, think the Gulf states and Israel, against a shared adversary. The whole goal is to create this strong local alliance that can economically and politically box in Iran. And the source argues this strategy is having an absolutely devastating effect. With these new regional alliances closing in, Iran is reportedly facing one of the worst economic crises in its modern history, a true economic freefall. Now let's put some numbers on that. Here's one of the key data points the source uses to show this pressure: a reported annual inflation rate of 15.2%. I mean, just think about that. The cost of living is just spiraling completely out of control. This economic pressure is also crushing the currency. The source claims it now takes, get this, 1.47 million Iranian rials to equal just $1. This is presented as clear evidence of an economy in total freefall, where just basic survival becomes a daily struggle for its people. All right, let's move on to the second pillar of this grand strategy and see how this all connects. This next part is about taking a historic American vulnerability, its dependence on foreign oil, and turning it into an incredibly powerful strategic weapon. You know, for decades, the argument goes American foreign policy was basically held hostage by its need for oil. This made the U.S. a vulnerable importer, constantly getting tangled up in foreign conflicts. The strategic shift here is moving the U.S. into the position of a dominant, stable producer, one that can shape global energy markets instead of being shaped by them. Okay, so this is where the analysis points to a very specific, almost cinematic event as proof that this isn't just some theory. It's a strategy that's being actively deployed with very real consequences. This quote is talking about the recent seizure of a Russian-flagged oil tanker that was on its way from Venezuela. According to the source, even with a Russian naval escort, the U.S. Navy just rolled up, boarded it, and impounded the ship. The analysis frames this not as some simple law enforcement action, but as a very direct, very public declaration of American naval dominance. And see, this single event is presented as a perfect example of that peace through strength doctrine. The idea is simple. You demonstrate such overwhelming power that potential adversaries are deterred from even thinking about starting a bigger conflict. And this brings us to the big question raised in the analysis. How was this even possible? We're talking about a ship protected by Russian and Venezuelan forces, purportedly using Chinese technology. The execution was apparently so flawless, it just shocked military observers. The conclusion drawn in this analysis is that the whole operation was designed to send a crystal clear message to the world. America's military technology isn't in decline. Not even close. Instead, the argument is that it's generations ahead, creating a tech gap so wide that rivals can't even hope to cross it. And according to the analysis, the fallout from this show of strength was immediate and widespread. Adversaries are reportedly, and I'm quoting here, freaking out. The source speculates that Cuba, now cut off from Venezuelan oil and Russian cash, could face collapse. And maybe most critically, it suggests that China's ambitions toward Taiwan are basically checkmated. Because you can't invade an island without secure energy the U.S. just proved it can intercept anywhere, anytime. So let's bring this all together. The strategy isn't just about military posturing or energy politics. The final piece of the puzzle, according to the source, is about building the economic foundations for the next 100 years. The analysis claims this strategy goes deep into the economy, specifically by breaking China's near monopoly on rare earth minerals. These are the resources you need for literally everything from your smartphone to advanced weapons. Securing these supply chains is presented as absolutely critical for future economic and national security. And as proof, the analysis points to $10 billion in new critical mineral deals secured with allies in just the last year. This is framed as a quiet but incredibly aggressive campaign to build alternative supply chains and cut our dependence on any single adversary. So here it is, the entire blueprint laid out. According to the source, these 4 steps create a coherent, deliberate, grand strategy. Step 1. Use diplomacy to forge new alliances that isolate your rivals. 2. Use energy dominance as both a weapon and a shield. 3. Secure the raw materials you need for future economic power. And finally, step 4. Project such overwhelming military strength that your adversaries don't even think about starting a direct fight. And that brings us to the final, really crucial question. The analysis we walked through today presents a powerful counter-narrative to that whole idea of American decline. It describes a world being reshaped by a deliberate, calculated design. So if this theory is correct, what are the real implications? What does a world built on this vision of peace through strength actually look like for all of us? That's the question we'll leave you with.